If you could come to order, we'll have people that are still filing in we'll have that table available to sign in. The city would like a record of those people that attended. Okay, my name's Chris Nielsen. I'm the chair of the University Community Planning Group. Andy Weiss is out of town for this meeting, and so I'll be chairing it. A couple of ground rules. Tonight's agenda is mobility networks. The feedback from the community will be used by the plan update in construction of the community discussion draft. There's going to be a hard stop at 8 p.m., so we need to be able to wind things up by then. The first 20 minutes, or after roll call, the first 20 minutes is going to be non-agenda public comment. That's for agenda items that are not on the agenda tonight. And then the next 30 minutes is going to be led by Nancy Graham and Leo from the city, and he's part of the mobility team. Anyway, so those two will be leading the discussion. After that, we'll have 15 to 20 minutes for subcommittee members to give comments and ask questions of the city, and following that, 15 to 20 minutes for the community to ask questions of the city, and then after that, there will be the meeting will kind of break down, and there will be members from the city over at the maps on the wall there. And then there will be maps available in the back of the room to actually put Post-its or do other kind of comments. So this is where you'll be able to provide written feedback, and you'll be able to look at the map and say, nah, this is not right, or I like this and I don't like that. So anyway, that'll be the feedback part of the meeting, and then we do have to leave at 8. So without further ado, I'm going to ask for people that want to make public comment. We have room for 10 to go over to the far wall. I'm going to give the microphone to them.
Do you want to do the minutes?
Yeah, actually, yeah, okay, yeah. Let me do that. So, Carrie, do you want to call the roll?
Keith? Thank you. Roger Kavanaugh?
Not here.
Thank you. Debbie Knight? Here. Thank you. George Latimer? Okay. Kitty Rodolico? Thank you. Joanne Selleck?
Not here.
Thank you. Rebecca Robinson Wood? Thank you. Jason Moorhead?
Here.
Thank you. Aiden Lynn?
Here.
I saw him.
Yes.
Thank you. Peter Crystal? Okay. Dinesh? Thank you. Lori Phillips? Thank you. Kristen Camper? Okay. Anu Delori? Melanie Cohn? Okay. And Chris? Okay. Carol Uribe?
Over here.
Thank you. And we note Andy Weiss is absent tonight.
Right, okay. And we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. I know Dinesh has a correction for one of them. Dinesh.
Oh, actually, it was just, I was present at both of those meetings, and I think my name wasn't on.
Okay, so Carrie, can you make a note that Dinesh was present for both of those meetings, and his name was not included on there? Are there any other corrections to either sets of minutes that were posted and sent? Okay, subcommittee members, can I get a motion to approve those with the single change? Okay, Katie Rodolico.
I move to approve both minutes by acclamation.
Okay, second. Carol Uribe. Okay, any dissent from the subcommittee? All right, seeing none, the minutes are approved with the correction noted. All right, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, or how many people over there are actually in line for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Linda Beresford. I'm a resident of University City and a member of the community organization Help Save UC. Our organization and several individuals have submitted comments to the Planning Department on the new land use scenarios A and B. These comments emphasize that the new scenarios should not reintroduce any rezoning of streets with single-family homes. We know that this has already been removed, but want to ensure that it doesn't return. These comments also request that the commercial properties on Governor Drive, particularly the Bonds and Sprouts shopping centers, not be rezoned to increase density. At the UC Planning Group meeting a week ago, I heard Ms. Graham say that she had been receiving many of these comments and that they were reflected in Scenario B. We know that Scenario B already incorporates these items, and the purpose of the comments is to request that Scenario A be changed to reflect the comments. We hope that when the Planning Department issues new land use scenarios, that the changes requested are reflected in Scenario A. The community will be very disappointed and dissatisfied with a limited response that the comments can only be included in Scenario B. So please change Scenario A to keep commercial properties on Governor Drive at their same zoning and densities. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrew Barton. I'm a resident of University City. And I'm concerned about the growth scenarios proposed by the city, and I'd like to see the following changes made to the adopted scenario. Number one, no rezoning of commercial properties along Governor Drive. These properties already allow housing, and more is not practical or wanted by the community. Number two, limit density in the highest density areas to approximately 140 dwelling units per acre. This allows for greater housing and limiting purchase and rental costs to residents while minimizing negative impacts to the community. Number three, outdoor recreation space must be included in all new developments. Developers should not be able to pay in lieu fees to avoid making parks. Number four, affordable housing should be required in all new developments. Developers should not be able to pay in lieu fees to get out of doing this. Number five, no high density developments near open space and MSCP lands. Impacts on native flora and fauna should be minimized. Number six, no transit or mobility infrastructure should be placed on MSCP lands, including but not limited to bike lanes and bridges. Lastly, I encourage all members of the Plan Update Subcommittee, the Planning Group, the UCPG Planning Group, and City Council members to advocate for these changes to the University Community Plan Update. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Thomas Parman. I'm a resident of UC for the past 21 years. I'm a homeowner. I'm also currently the sitting treasurer for the Centurion Foundation at UC High School, where we're sitting right now in my third year. The reason I'm here is because for many months I've been asking fellow board members, fellow UC residents about what do all these plans mean, how do they impact us? And I've talked to a lot of people around town and people always shrug their shoulders, and I haven't found one person yet, fellow residents in UC, that understand what these plans mean and how they will impact us. I imagine there's probably quite a few people in this room that don't understand that as well. And as I perused the city planning website for these plans, there's all kinds of documents that are available on the website for public consumption. However, for those of us that have not pursued careers in city planning, a lot of this is hieroglyphics to us. So when you publish things like low density residential, low medium density, very high density, commercial office, urban flex, you get the picture with all these numbers attached to them. It doesn't specifically tell us which pieces of land the city is going to reclaim for eminent domain. It doesn't tell us whose homes are going to be impacted by what you're doing. It doesn't tell us when you tear down the Vaughn Shopping Center, what's going to go there and how many stories high it's going to be. This is all very vague information that a lot of us don't know answers to. So when it comes time for meetings like this, and you need our feedback, it's really hard to actually give feedback when we don't really know what's going on, and it's hard to trust anybody because it seems that the people that will benefit are the developers that are going to make money off millions off of the commercial development, the UCSD for adding student housing, and God knows politicians to make their careers look better, amongst the community. So I would please ask that you guys have better transparency in how you communicate things moving forward, because right now, again, as a longtime homeowner resident of this community, as a volunteer treasurer for our foundation of this high school, And I've talked to so many people. I haven't found one person yet that really understands what you people are doing. Thank you.
Well said. Hi everyone, my name is Chris Margraf. I live just across Rose Canyon on Shoreline Drive. My girlfriend and I are employed full-time in University City, and as such have a vested interest in remaining here and building the community for the future. As a young person, it can be very challenging to not be able to see a future here where I can live, buy a house, and build a family. Without increased zoning, we will not be able to do that. We'll have to move further out and further out and further out until we don't have any more land to live on. With that being said, I would like a walkable, dense, and close-knit community with zoning increases. And without zoning increases, that will not be possible. I'm in favor of scenario A and any increases in density that have such that University City can have a bright, sustainable future. Thank you.
Good evening. I just wanted to let you know, for people who are concerned about the changes that are happening in University City and the requirements that are being put forth in University City from the entire city of San Diego, we are planning a UC residents rally protesting the city of San Diego's proposal to add enormous density to our community that will forever change the landscape. And we would like to bring media attention specifically to this issue. And this will be March 11th on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the corners of Governor Drive and Genesee Avenue. My name is Ann Morgan.
Hello, my name is Rachel Graham, and I'm a graduate of UC San Diego. I'm very disappointed that scenarios A and B reduce the amount of potential housing in the university plan update area. I urge the city to continue to consider scenario 1 as well. In September, the Planning Commission spoke strongly in favor of the density in the scenarios that were presented, and some members said that if anything, the proposed density was too low. We're in the middle of a housing crisis and a climate crisis. We need to maximize density in this job and transit-rich area, especially because we know that not everything that's zoned for will actually get built. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jesse O'Sullivan. I'm Policy Counsel at Circulate San Diego. We're a local nonprofit dedicated to creating excellent mobility choices and vibrant, healthy neighborhoods. Last week, Circulate released a report called Making the Most of the Midcoast Trolley. It's available at our website at circulatesd.org/midcoastreport. The region invested $2.2 billion of taxpayer money in building the Midcoast Trolley. It's already delivering economic growth, climate benefits, and creating access for more people, but we could be getting even more. We have an obligation to taxpayers to make sure that we get the most out of that investment. That means increased capacity for homes and jobs, and a safe bicycle and pedestrian network, and fast, frequent buses. It also means increasing trolley frequency to every 7.5 minutes. Following the recommendations of the report will help meet our climate crisis and our housing crisis. And on a personal note, as a 30-year-old in San Diego, many of my friends can't afford to live here. I have friends who've left the city because they can't afford to live here. We need more housing. Again, if you're interested in the report, it's available at circulatesd.org/midcoastreport. We're also going to have a lunch and learn event on Zoom on Thursday at noon, which you can find on our website.
Hello, my name is Tom Roth. I'd like to start with a question. It looks like scenario B was changed since the last time this was presented, and it looks like it changed back to not rezoning the Bonds and the Sprouts Shopping Center, but I can't really tell for sure because the colors are so similar on this key that I can't tell. And I don't think that I'm the only one. I asked several people before this meeting started, and I think there's confusion there, so I'd like clarification, maybe a vocal explanation after I speak, and I'd really appreciate that. I am in favor of removing the rezoning from both plans A and scenario A and B for those two properties, the Bonds and the Sprouts. I think that if scenario A is actually selected, you have an astronomical amount of density being added very close by. You don't need those two properties to be to be redeveloped in a way that's so out of character for the surrounding, in that surrounding area. So again, I appreciate an answer to the question, or at least that key to be updated to have more discriminating colors, and I'm in favor of removing redevelopment of those two commercial properties in South UC to leave them as is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Bernstein. I'm a long-term resident in University City, a local real estate agent, and part of the Help Save UC group. I'm really reassured by seeing a huge crowd of you turn out tonight. We walked the streets and we've spread the message. Since the survey went and it went under the radar and none of us knew about it, we had to come and educate our University City friends and neighbors about what's going on and we had to educate the local residents of University City as to what the huge changes are that the city plans, and you are listening, and we hope that you at the city are listening. We were encouraged when we gave you as Help Save UC, we gave you all our points and you put it in scenario B. We go onto your site and it says city preferred on scenario A. How do we change that to community preferred on scenario B, and that you'll listen to us, and that we won't have what happened to Bristol Farms disappear? When we talk about supermarkets, we are threatened that Vons and Sprouts will go in South University City. Who thought Bristol Farms would go, and who thought that Bristol Farms is the most needed supermarket on that corner? I mean, and most of the people ahead of me said exactly what I needed to say. Thanks.
Hello, Jen. I'm a owner in University City Southwest. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old. My husband has graciously volunteered to take care of them tonight at bedtime, so I can be here. So my comment's less formal, more anecdotal, but it is on the same topic as everyone else has touched on. My whole, sentiment behind it, I'm not on either extreme, but I do care deeply about infrastructure and ensuring that infrastructure is in place, specifically around schools. So my example, or anecdote, if you will, is I took a tour recently of my district, my area's elementary school. And the tour was given by the principal, and they were phenomenally impressive, knew every single thing about the school, had been with them for years and years, was just, knew every answer, had every topic covered. The one question that, quote unquote, stumped her was when I brought up this topic. And I said, how have you worked, or has there been any communication with how schools will assume any growth in this potential increased density? And she really was kind of, for the first time for the entire tour, she had a lack of words. And then she kind of gave me this look like she had something on her mind but didn't want to say more, and said they will approach that when they have to and if they have to. So that made me extremely nervous. That actually moved me toward the end of the spectrum where I'm hesitant to support any increase in density. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people who have young children in my age group, they aren't able to attend these meetings. They're kind of forced to stay home, get baths, make dinner. So I really wanted to make a point to come because I've talked to friends who live in the neighborhood, who bought in the past few years. Got it, wrap it up. But I just kind of want to make sure we're fully represented, and infrastructure, I think you'll experience a lot less friction, especially with my demographic, if you reassure people that the infrastructure, especially around schools and supporting staff and new students, are there.
Good evening. My name is Peg Daly. I am a long-term resident of University City. I've been here for over 35 years. My husband and I, as young people, moved into this area because of the great schools and the convenience to everything, and a good quality of life. Peaceful, just a great quality of life. That's what we bought in for. And to have that robbed from us is really, I feel so violated that that with a high density increase, all that will disappear. And quite frankly, as a voter, I will not support you in the future should this go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Lisa Brazina. I just have a very few comments to say. And they have to do with the Planning Commission, and they also our politicians are in the pockets of the developers. This is what is happening. We need to stop that. And the other comment I have is affordable housing is never going to be available in University City. So if you can't buy a house now, you won't be able to buy one later. Thank you.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Can I go? Okay. I'm Thomas Draper. I'm a short-term resident. I moved here 4 years ago. But I am feel great to see this many people kind of standing up. We, in our previous place we lived, went through a similar rezoning thing where a number of houses were demolished to make room for higher density housing. The entire community was against it happening, but they still forced it through because they put the vote to the city at large and cast it as a way to help students. And I felt it was very disingenuous, and it increased the traffic and danger for our students who were attending schools. And it felt like it was far more money driven than actually what was good for the community. So please think of our community before money.
We'll now be moving on to the next part of the agenda. Nancy Graham will give a brief introduction, followed by the mobility presentation.
Hi, I'm Nancy Graham. I'm sure you've all heard my name, and if you wanted a face, that's what it looks like. I'll take off my mask for a second, but I don't want to get COVID right now. So, especially because I have a plan to write, and I'm trying to work really hard on that. Tonight we also have Leo Allo. He is a senior traffic engineer here with the city, and so we're both presenting tonight and wanted to introduce ourselves. Go to the next slide. I wanted to just touch base on the planning process. Some of you have been with us for a long time, but some of you are a little bit newer to the process, so I just want to make sure everyone understands the process before we jump into mobility networks. So this project started in 2018. It's been going on for a really long time. And one of the speakers mentioned that there's a lot of stuff on the website, and the reason why is because we have done a lot of things. And so all the stuff that's in a little bit lighter gray, you can find on the website and see all the information, all the meetings that were had. Some of, all the ones on Zoom have videos. There's meeting minutes that were prepared. On top of it, a lot of different documents have been prepared, so those are all available for you to look at. Where we are in the process is we're here with the blue ones. So the last couple meetings that we had, we talked a lot about land use. We've been talking about land use for a long time. We have developed two scenarios, a scenario A and a scenario B. They're both on our website. There was a very slight change to scenario B that we noticed the outline of the Regents Road Bridge inside the open space. It was just an error. So we fixed that. That's the change that was made to scenario B. It was just like a mapping mistake, but it wasn't. It was still shown as open space. It was just, there was a line there that we removed. So that was the change that was made to scenario B since the last time we were there. But what we are working on doing is to come up with a draft plan. And that draft plan will have maps, but it will also have a lot of this detailed information that people are looking for. And so that's what we're working really hard on right now in order to prepare that and release it. And so with that, we also have a complementary mobility system. Since we've been taking a lot of input on land use before we put out a plan, we thought it might be a good idea to share the mobility maps as well. So that's what we're sharing tonight. Can you advance the slide? but I just want to talk about the process for the next year. So this spring, we are going to be releasing this draft plan, and this plan will have all the details on all the different subject matters that are covered in a community plan. Then there will be a few months of community review with that. We are going to ask this body to convene and to go through the whole document and put together a collection of comments for us to receive, and there will be a few months to do that. From there, so the purple is we start with the gray. The gray is the first draft. And then after we finish that first draft, we'll collect a lot of information, then we make a second draft. And that second draft is what is officially called the draft plan. And that plan is what we do our environmental analysis on. So when people say, I don't know what the impacts are, we have to have a plan to study those impacts. So that's what happens in, well, we have the green one here, that we'll make a second draft of the plan, and then that's the one that we will analyze all the environmental impacts. Through what's called the CEQA process, or the California Environmental Quality Act, that information will all be shared publicly, and then there's another commenting process that happens on that document where you can look at the analysis that's completed, what the proposed impacts are, what the proposed mitigation to those impacts will be, and then you can comment on that before that is finalized. Then from there, that's when we get to the final draft that goes before the Planning Commission and the City Council. So that's our process here. So people are saying we want more information, and the answer is we're releasing all of those things as we produce them. And so the reason why you haven't found it is we're just not there yet in the process. But this is where we're going. This is kind of the outline of what we'll be doing. And if you, there's a sign-up sheet. If you're not already getting our email blasts, please sign up on that. And so when all these documents are released, you'll get the email out that it's up there, and these meetings will continue where people will be able to comment on these documents and provide input to us. From there, I want to turn it over to Leo so he can introduce the mobility stuff we want to share tonight. Thank you.
Can you just comment on the questions raised by several people about how difficult it is to interpret the documents you have on your website? Do you have any comments about that, please?
So we haven't put out a plan yet. So people are complaining that they can't interpret something that hasn't been released. All we've put out is a couple of maps, and the document that we are producing right now will have like a pictorial legend that shows all the different colors in the map and then has pictures of what development at that density looks like. So we're putting that together, but the plan hasn't been released yet. So people saying we don't have the information, it's because we haven't released the plan. So you gotta let us release the plan, and then from there, it'll make it a little bit easier to understand the parts of it.
Are the schools involved in your plan?
Absolutely. We meet with San Diego Unified on every single one of our plans. So I'm sorry that the one person that was spoken to wasn't.
All the things that your plan will involve.
When we release the plan, it will have all those things.
I do not want the answer. I'm asking if you would please tell us the different types of information that will be answered.
You mean like what are the sections of the plan? So sure, we have community plans for every single community within the city of San Diego. So we have a land use plan, we have a mobility plan, we have a parks, recreation, open space plan, we have public services, facilities, and safety. We have, what else? What am I forgetting, Tate?
If that type of information were on the website.
Well, that all, I mean, there is the current plan is on the website, and we're updating that plan. So you can look at what the plan is for university right now with all of those things, and then we're going to be releasing a new draft that has what the update of that plan will be.
Okay, so why in your mind is there a disconnect between the schools not having that information, the principal not having the information, and it being in the existing plan?
Because I don't work for San Diego Unified. We meet with San Diego Unified with their facilities planning division. You need to let me answer the question.
What percentage of this room do you think believes that the school will be involved in the plan?
That doesn't matter. Like, you need to let me answer the question. This is how this is done. Sir, this is not a back and forth. You're not grilling me. That's not how this works, okay? You need to be a little bit more kinder here. The answer is no. I'm happy to answer the San Diego Unified question. We meet with their facilities department. We have quarterly meetings with them that we meet on all of our plan updates. And we also meet with them specifically on our plan updates. When we do a plan, we also share it with them, and then we receive comment from them if they have concerns on top of it when we have a draft plan. So we do coordinate with San Diego Unified very closely. What happens between facilities and the individual principals, that's not something that I can control working for the city, but we do coordinate very closely with San Diego Unified.
Okay, Rebecca has a question.
I'm thinking that to do with either one of these plans, it might be helpful for the citizens here to get an idea of what each would do as far as increase the traffic on the street and the population that would attend the schools. You know, if they were able to see, you know, what those increases would do to their community as far as the number of, you know, students and teachers that would be required, you know, to serve this new population, it would be quite helpful. They could.
So that's all in the environmental impact report that we haven't prepared yet, but no decision will be made until that report is done.
I'm sure there's some guidelines, you know, you can see some of that, you know, from previous reports that were done in other areas of the community. You know, you could just compare, you know, a population increase of 5,000 or 10,000 or 30,000, you know, and, you know, I'm sure there, because you have already those environmental impact reports that were created or developed for the sustainable communities that was just put out last year, and it's a tier from a previous study, but, you know, all those, you know, that's historic information, you know, that should be available to the, you know, somebody, I'm sure, you know, put it together as far as the comparisons go.
I think we're getting a little off topic, so we could move on to the...
Yeah, we want to go to the agenda.
All right. Thank you. We're going to pivot a little bit to the mobility networks. So Nancy did a great job of doing the sort of overall for the CPU process. This slide shows the more of the mobility focus and where we are in the mobility, planning the mobility element. We've completed the existing conditions, working on finalizing the concepts and alternatives, and then as well as working on a draft of the plan, highlighted in yellow. So I did want to touch a little bit on the mobility goals that were developed early on in this process. It's really to create a connected and integrated transportation network, a balanced multimodal transportation network that prioritizes safe, accessible, sustainable, and attractive travel options for all users, enhance access to public transit, linkages within the community, the city of San Diego and the region, and opportunities to increase transit ridership. And lastly, we have a mobility system that embraces emerging technologies, smart infrastructure, and is aimed at improving mobility options, efficiency, and meeting climate action plan and transportation, and meeting climate action plan of the transportation system. So today we're going to cover the 5 different network maps that you'll see along the wall today. The 5 maps are the planned pedestrian.
Yeah, pretty washed out.
Sorry about that.
Just read out each one as you introduce it then, okay?
Sure, yeah, I think maybe if we could turn off one of the lights. I apologize, I know it's a little hard to see the screen here. Yeah, the very, well this is, we'll get to each one in the presentation. So we're going to be covering the planned pedestrian route type map, the planned bicycle network map, planned transit network map, potential transit improvements, as well as the planned roadway classifications map. So those are the maps along the wall. We'll take some questions at the end. I want to be able to get through the presentation. Thanks.
Could we
have the, could we have consider?
Why do we get Seemed like that part with Nancy
But
was
you
cut
don't.
off.
You wait
didn't get
until
to
the
answer
plans are
questions.
published and your environmental impact surveys are done, by then it's too late for us to give our feedback on that. We need transparency now, people.
And the trolley is not
I think the
safe.
presentation will answer some of the questions, at least on the mobility side. We do want to get through, there's quite a few more slides to go. So going through, so for the pedestrian map, when you're looking at that, they're really it's going to show you the different types of pedestrian route types on the map. You have the district types, which are for more heavy pedestrian levels in mixed-use urban areas. You have the corridor type, which are present along roadways that support businesses and shopping districts. The connector types run along roadways with moderate to high vehicular traffic. Ancillary pedestrian facilities, which are facilities away from or crossing over streets, such as plazas, paseos and promenades, and as well as paths, which are paved exclusive rights of way for pedestrians and bicyclists. And so here's the map that presents the planned pedestrian types, showing the different typologies that I just described.
They're posted on the side of the wall.
Back
Go
it
look
up,
at them.
Go back one. We might not have time to look at it.
They're also hung on the wall.
I don't, when you show that, I can't help but, on your legend, you have legends for the colors, but connector corridor, that means nothing to me. What does that mean?
How does that apply to our neighborhood? Not reading the
so here you'll
website.
see districts in the blue. That's along the Genesee Avenue corridor here. You have the connectors, the corridors around Regents, Nobel Drive.
What is a corridor? What's the difference? Is that a walkway?
Well, yeah, so the districts are more for, since they do have heavier pedestrian traffic, eventually when the adjacent land use is redeveloped, that's when we'll put in more of these wider sidewalks, street trees. It's encouraged to make it more pedestrian friendly. Then you have your corridors, which have some of the features of a district. And then you have your connectors, which is more along the perimeter.
What are the areas that we're looking at right now that we build on the sidewalk?
Yeah, this is a little tough to see, I think, for a lot of people. But it is blown up on the back. We also posted it on the website. And then we can go into it a little bit more and answer questions towards the end.
Asking about the photographs on the left, what are those representing?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so up here can't find my mouse. So in the middle here, you'll see this is more of a district because it is wider. It allows for better pedestrian access. You're accessing the adjacent businesses.
Where do you plan on putting this? So have you ever started traffic on Genesee at 5 o'clock? And then we decided to walk to Governor Drive or get a bus. If we were really going to use public transport behind you, do you know how long it would take to get from UTC
Excuse me,
to
we need
Governor
to
Drive
have,
using public
we need to
transport?
be able to get.
I understand it's just waiting it.
This is not a productive.
Makes you inaudible.
Why can't you go through the presentation when we can't even see it?
They are again printed in the back. You'll have the opportunity to look at them after the presentation. So now, if you're not familiar with the different types of bicycle facilities that you'll see on the printed maps, you have your Class 1 bike paths, which are shared or multi-use. The next slide will be the map.
Okay, I'm going to ask, please, everybody, if you can please give him some respect and just let him get through the presentation. And then and to ask the questions. It's seriously unfair to expect somebody to be up here trying to give a presentation and every 3 seconds getting grilled with questions. I please respectfully ask that you let him get through the question or the presentation, and then he's happy to answer questions. We're gonna be here with the maps and go over more details, okay? Thank you. So I'm asking again, let us get through the presentation, and then, my name is Tate Galloway, I'm the Deputy Director for the Planning Department. So I'm asking, can you thank you. So we have this point, we can just end the presentation and let the committee have the discussion. Sure. That's fine. If you don't want this presentation, we can certainly end it.
That speaks volumes of your opinion of the populace of this city.
Then,
you know what? Because we sat in the last meeting and we sat in the audience when members on that committee personally attacked people in the audience. Yeah. They did. And you know what? I'm hearing a lot of questions, and I agree with Chris, and people need to listen to Chris, and we do need to hear what he has to say. I agree with that, and I think we can be respectful. But your comments right now are not respectful. You're threatening. And we are the tax-paying, voting citizens of the city.
I'm asking to give him some respect when he speaks, because people are being threatening to him. I'm not being threatening. I'm not being threatening. I'm asking respectfully, please. Sir, please don't tell me what to do.
You know what? You're telling everybody else what to do.
I'm asking nicely, please, to give the staff respect. I'm asking nicely, please.
Oh, that's, okay. All right, yeah, we'll go ahead and continue. I know that a lot of you are already familiar with these, but many in the audience aren't. So for their sake, you know, so that they understand what they're looking at, we'll just go through the slides.
What city are these in? San Diego? Someplace else?
Yeah, so all of these photos are in San Diego today. You'll recognize probably it's at La Jolla Boulevard. But I'll be talking about the different types. So you have the class 1, which are the shared use or multi-use paths. That's paved right-of-way shared with pedestrians and bicyclists. You have the class 2, which are allocated portion of the roadway exclusive for bicycle travel. That's the second one from the right. And then the class 3 bike routes, or also known as bike boulevards, is where bicyclists will share the road with vehicles, and they're demarcated by the Shero under the class 3. And then you have the class 4 cycle track, which is the protected bike lane, which has a separation from vehicles and bicyclists. So this is the map of the planned bicycle network. Again, also printed and on the wall, available online if you'd like to view it later. There is a lot to this map. I know you might all have some questions on it, which we can answer towards the end. But this shows what we're going to be planning throughout the community, using the different classifications I just described.
May I ask a question specifically about the bike network?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. LaCava, before he stepped down, well, not stepped down, but transitioned into his new district, I had a long conversation with him on the subject of Governor Lane. He said that over 97% of the emails he received regarding the reduction of Governor Lane and the installation of bike lanes on Governor Lane were in opposition to doing that. So I have to wonder, if 97% of the communication to our city councilman says we're in opposition, why is it still being done to the community?
So I'm not familiar, well, I guess I'll touch a little bit on it. So the question is the Governor Drive road diet, where it will be reduced to 1 lane in each direction. So really the recommendations being made in order to, currently there are no bike lanes on Governor.
We got big sidewalks.
So what you'll see is,
a bike on Governor Drive.
what we're gonna have is an improved bike facility. Currently, we are gonna do the modeling, but currently it doesn't necessarily need to have 4 lanes along Governor Drive. but we can look at that and see what those comments were from the community.
Thank you. And for the record, I asked you
Okay, so this next slide shows the bicycle level of traffic stress. This is a metric that we use to assess the quality of bicycle facilities within a community. And the factors used to determine bicycle level of traffic stress are speeds, the facility type, volume, whether there's on-street parking, and any traffic calming measures. As you can see, based on the plan network, we are significantly improving the bicycle level of traffic stress within the community. So 1 being the least stressful and 4 being the most stressful.
How would you take a bike to Pacific Beach from the university, please?
Yeah, we'll do the questions at the end. We have some more slides to cover here. So I'm going to go into a few of the transit strategies that you'll see on the map. Those include managed lanes, such as high occupancy vehicle lanes, which offer priority access to people using transit, carpool laning or van pooling. We have mobility hubs, which are locations where you bring together many different transit and micromobility and things like that, so that it would be a focal point where you can go to access transit, take the bus. And we also have adaptive signal timing, which would allow for adjusting the timing within signals. Flexible lanes, which are repurposed general purpose lanes, which would prioritize transit, things like transit, as well as smart corridors, which are similar to flexible lanes, but would use technology to make intersections more efficient.
Did anyone come look at the road? Or
Please hold your.
So the last two here, we have our transit leap, which is, so Transit Leap creates a complete network of fast, high-capacity, high-frequency transit services that connect major residential and commercial and employment areas, which is part of the next-gen rapid bus service that Sandag and MTS are planning to implement. And then we also have the aerial skyway, which could assist in helping cover difficult terrain and topographical obstacles in connecting Sereno Valley and University City. This is the planned network transit map, which really shows all of the planned improvements within the Sandag Regional Transportation Plan, as well as the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans. And it does show what I had described in the last slide with managed lanes, adaptive signal timing, and the others. So this map's a little bit different from the last one. This one's the potential transit improvements map. This shows the city's potential transit improvements within University. These improvements are recommended by the city and the community and would be evaluated and studied for potential implementation. With these improvements, we hope to leverage regional transit investments to create reliable options, improve transit connections to key activity centers. I did want to highlight one improvement, which are the flexible lanes. And really, flexible lanes are what they sound. They could be flexible, either used for bus lanes, high occupancy vehicles. As you can see, they could be carpool only before a certain period of time. And then on the right, you have a picture of a bus only lane. Here's a concept that we had developed for Nobel Drive. This is near the I-5 freeway. This is a center running bus lane. We worked with MTS on really developing a concept that they liked, which is the center running. This does reduce conflicts with bicyclists and vehicles getting out of driveways, as well as making right turns. Going into planned roadway classifications, you'll see on the planned roadway classifications map the different types of roadways, prime arterial, major arterial collector, and local. The difference between these are that prime arterials really serve the highest volumes of traffic moving through a street, typically between 4 and 8 lanes. You go into major arterials, which serve less than prime arterials. They typically are 2 or more lanes and serve both local and through traffic. You have the collector streets that provide land access and traffic circulation within residential, commercial, and industrial uses. They connect local streets and arterials that are typically designed with 2 travel lanes that accommodate on-street parking. And then local are just your typical local residential streets that serve fronting residential neighborhoods. We did include in here a 2-way left turn lane, which you'll see in the photo on the right, which allows vehicles to go into the center lane to make a left turn, if you're wondering what TWLTL is on the map. And here's the just a quick view of the map. You'll have opportunities again to look at this a lot more closely. One thing also to note is that, again, we have no traffic modeling data yet. This is really just the first draft of what we're thinking. Once we do have that modeling data, we will look at, again, these different recommendations to see whether they're still appropriate. I did want to show a slide of what Executive Drive Promenade could potentially look like. We have some renderings on the top, and then on the bottom you have a cross-section that shows the promenade, separated bikeway, buffer travel lanes, and then the separated bikeway and sidewalk on the south side. Previously this was shown in the middle of the street. Some of you may remember that, but now it's been moved to the north side. All right, and with that, that concludes my presentation, and we're here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. All right, the way we're going to do this is I'm going to take subcommittee comments first, and then I'm going to take community comments. So I'll start with you, Katie.
Okay, Nancy, I realize you weren't here for much of the discussion about the Governor Drive 1 lane versus 2 lanes. You weren't here when we discussed that before, and we have a new council member who wasn't involved in that either. But one of the points that was brought up by me vociferously was any EIR has to address traffic drop-off, school drop-off and pickup at Spreckles and Stanley before you remove a lane. And currently, we have construction near Spreckles that blocks all the parking. So parents are pulling out into the only lane you can because they're double parking in front of Spreckles. They're pulling out in front of you in front of Stanley. And you also have a very short little bridge between Radcliffe and Genesee where the cars can't get through that intersection with 2 lanes going eastbound towards Genesee during traffic drop-off in the morning. Traffic EIR needs to address it during the school year, during drop-off and pickup times, and after the construction at Spreckles is done. And I don't know how that can happen because this construction at Spreckles is still going on. An EIR looking at Genesee, how are you going to handle the pure water disruption on Genesee? How are you going to do a traffic study when pure water is destroying the traffic flow on Genesee? And again, you need to specifically look at morning commute northbound and evening commute southbound times. And the bike lanes, that some of them do exist east of Genesee, but they start and stop. And for example, there's a bike lane in front of Curie on the westbound side. And right now it acts as a right turn lane for everyone turning to go northbound on Genesee. So bikes can't use it because cars are stopped there to get through that intersection because it's a problematic intersection. So the EIR has to look at that. Reducing lanes during these times of day is going to be a huge problem. Maybe a flexible lane thing could work, but just getting rid of the lanes, you're going to have the entire community come to a halt between about 7:40 in the morning and 8 o'clock in front of Stanley, and between about 8:45 and 9 o'clock in front of Spreckles. So it's bad. And then the other thing is you showed a pedestrian district on Genesee north of La Jolla Village, and I'm wondering what the heck? Genesee is a very busy vehicle road, and you're talking about it being a pedestrian district, like it's high pedestrian. So I think you need to relook at that one too.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Yeah.
Yeah, we have people taking notes.
All right. Yes, Rebecca, keep.
Hi, to do with my name is Rebecca Robinson Wood. I'm actually a member of this subcommittee. But on the comments that Katie just made, some of the newer schools, elementary schools, I've seen in the city of San Diego have drop-off lanes for their elementary schools. It seems like Curie as well as the Spreckles and maybe the other elementary school there, they don't have the similar drop-off lanes. And
Curie has it.
does it? Okay. Well, in any case, you might consider that, if more cars were able to get off the main road, to drop off their children and slow down, the traffic that way in a protected area, more protected area, say, have several lanes, for letting the children safely get to school on the site of the school.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Other subcommittee members? Yes, Carol Uribe. Business subcommittee member?
Yes, I'm speaking as a committee member and also as a 39-year resident. I live on Governor Drive. I live across from the Stanley Park. And I can tell you that during the hours that Katie was mentioning, it's clogged every day. So I don't see that changing it to one lane or two lanes or whatever they do is going to change anything that's right now. Because during those school drop-off hours, it's always clogged there. It's always clogged. We've got two lanes right now. I don't see that that's going to change. There's a whole lane of parking in that corridor across from Stanley Park. And people typically park there and then they double park in the second lane and the whole thing is clogged. So I could see, my suggestion would be to have one of those share the lane type situations where you have the bikes and similar to going on Torrey Pines Road leading up to Prospect, there's a share the lane type thing painted on the, so that you have bicycle and cars trying to negotiate together there. So that might be a good compromise.
Okay, other subcommittee members that would like to make a comment? Lori, yes, okay.
I'm Lori Phillips. I'm a business community representative. I'm also both a resident and a landlord in the city. And in the last couple of years, what I've seen is the city allowing buildings to reduce the setback between the road and the actual structures. And I'm concerned that by the time we get around to saying, okay, we're going to put a bike path here, the opportunity to use what used to be a 12-foot setback to create those bike lanes or to widen streets is going to be gone. And I'll give you a particular example. Desperate need for good bike entry and exit from UCSD. At La Jolla Village Drive, where the bikes come out of UCSD to go to the shopping communities near La Jolla Village Square, that new UCSD building used to be almost a 15-foot setback. The new building comes right out to the sidewalk. Now we've lost the opportunity to put a good bike path in there. And I'd like you to please pay attention to that now, so that between now and the time we go to build these bike routes, we haven't lost the opportunity. You really, that building has eliminated the opportunity to create a safe bike path on a very heavily trafficked road coming out of a university campus. I can cite other areas for you as well. But think about that now. I know the city wants to have greater density, and expanding the buildings out to the edge allows for more of that, but think about what you're doing and how that's going to affect the future opportunity to create good transit.
Just looking for other subcommittee members that have. Oh, okay, Aiden, yeah, come up.
Sorry, it's hard to know.
Hello, my name is Aiden Lin. I'm the student representative on the subcommittee, and I just wanted to weigh in here and voice some of the young perspectives from students at UCSD. So specifically, I want to start by saying that students are one of the primary reasons why we have already such a dense and concentrated transit network here in University City. That's because we use buses, we now use the trolley to get around. Even if it's short distances, we use the trolley or buses to get to class so that we don't have to worry about parking. And yeah, we want to continue to see those options continue to grow, because we know that more transit options means a brighter and cleaner future. Specifically, I know that creating more frequent buses, especially on the Superloop, sometimes the line can be really long to get on the bus with a lot of students using transit. And then also more frequent trolleys will help us so that we don't have to plan out as much of our trip, and it would incentivize students to take the trolley more often than they already do. So I wanted to weigh in here as a young voice that we support more transit options because it will allow us to get around University City and connect us with the greater region as a whole. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to read a comment from a subcommittee member who could not be here tonight. That's Roger Kavanaugh. I think many of you are familiar with him. He has a very brief comment. He says, "Let's consider several local areas where mobility would be made much more safe and accessible by pedestrian bridges. The superblock around UTC with emphasis on La Jolla Drive." I think that's La Jolla Village Drive. The I-5 ramps on La Jolla Village Drive. The periphery of UC San Diego, especially at Regents and La Jolla Village and the Torrey Pines Junction. And I suggest a serious look at how local districts could be revamped to provide for pedestrian and bike access to walkable services. For example, Costa Verde and the surrounding two-story apartments could become an eco-district embodying affordable housing, more green space, and high-rises with safer bike and pedestrian access to Costa Verde. I would rule in state and federal funding for a demonstration project. Right. Okay. So that's Roger's comment. I think we have taken all subcommittee members now.
Thank you. I have a question for Nancy, which is looking at the street reconfigurations, which we looked at some time ago, 2021, I think. So making, one thing I like the idea of is making protected bike lanes on Genesee. But we're also going to, in looking at that reconfiguration, there's obviously a lot of issues with the fact that you're proposing huge increases in density along Genesee. So you have you're planning for a potential large increase in traffic, even if people use transit, there will still be a large increase in traffic, and yet reducing the lanes in some cases. And so I'm wondering, in the EIR, are you going to model like what the traffic impacts of the increased density are in combination with reducing the lanes. Because that's just a concern for me, that it's not just a fantasy, like what it would be nice to have, versus how are those aspects of the plan coming together, and the assumptions about how much traffic those projects will bring versus reality, the underlying assumptions.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Let's see. I think that is the end of subcommittee comment. Did I miss anybody? No. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and call on some community members to give comments and ask questions. So please be respectful when I call on you. Okay, this is Bill Beck. He's a resident of North University City.
Thank you, Chris. I just have one question. We saw these plans that you plan on aerials, divided highways and everything else. For 8 years, 9 years now, I've been asking the city of San Diego for 3 streetlights so we can see where we're walking in the dark. 8, 9 years. Hasn't happened. Where are you going to come up with all this money for these wonderful projects that are pie in the sky? You can't even fix the potholes.
All right. Please state your name when you can say you're seated.
My name is Tom McDonough. I've been QC since 1996. I love the community. We came here to grow old because it was such a convenient community as it is. The shopping, transportation. We live just off of Governor Drive. We've watched a huge increase in density on the east end of Governor Drive. At the same time, the city canceled bus service to that area. Without going any further on that one, let me merely say I'm delighted that the city is studying mobility in our area. That's necessary. The other side of the coin is the density issue. And I have tremendous objection to pushing high density into this community when the city has hundreds and hundreds of acres that the city owns. There's thousands of acres of public land. The city extends all the way to Safari Park. Lots of room for development and wonderful opportunity to develop transit corridors to support those developments. Why try to stuff it down in an established community?
My name is Tom Ruff. I have a question actually about the agenda tonight, and it's specifically about this particular map, and it shows these queue jump areas. It shows one here at Governor and Genesee in both directions. So I'm not really clear on how that's going to work, and I'd appreciate some more description about that, because it seems like you'd have to add a lane or repurpose a lane. The only way you're going to add a lane is by taking away property from like one of the gas stations, eliminating that property or cutting into it somehow. So there's already 7 or 8 lanes in each direction if you include the merged lane as people turn onto those roads. We don't want more lanes. Genesee widening was part of the whole Regions Bridge discussion, and that was all put to bed. It was supposed to be over. So I hope you're not planning to widen Genesee at that intersection, because that should have been settled. So if you're not going to widen, how are you going to do that? Because you can't just do it in the last like 20 feet before the intersection. In order for it to actually work, the bus has got to be able to bypass traffic. So how are you going to do that? So I appreciate clarification on that. Thank you.
All right, Tom, do you want to answer?
Yeah, that's a good question about the queue jumps on Genesee. So you don't necessarily have to widen the lane. Sometimes they can use a right turn lane or a shoulder. Essentially, they would be able to use a lane that's not typically for traffic to go through the intersection, but they'll be able to skip the general traffic, regular vehicles for transit or other purposes.
Make sure you check at rush hour traffic, because the right lanes are full too, people turning.
Yeah, we definitely will, it has to be studied more, but that is an option where you can use queue jump without widening your street.
I'm gonna take a question from this side, just a sec. And then we'll move back and forth. Barbara.
Barbara Gelman. I lived here for 33 years. One thing in this whole big discussion plan that has not been mentioned is about safety regarding our police, fire department, fire rescue. How do they fit in? Have you had any really good discussions with them? And what is the feedback? Because it will affect higher density communities.
Sure, so we meet with every department in the city when we make these plans. So we meet with police, we meet with fire, we meet with library, we meet with park and rec. Everyone, this plan, it has to be implemented by multiple departments. So each of the departments also get to, express any concerns on any plans, and then we work through those before we release a draft. So we do meet regularly with the fire department. We, meet with police. We meet with the departments. That's part of our process. We have not had any objections to the plans that we've put forward in front of them. There are some issues that we are taking a deeper dive in to make sure that they work. It's an iterative process when we meet with them.
Okay. I will take this gentleman back here.
Hi. My name is Alan Ramrus. I've lived here for 50 years. One question I have is, from where comes the fundamental motivation for all of these plans? And it will be a part of the plan that comes out shortly, that I'd like to see a listing of the businesses that are involved and how some of these plans are going to be funded and who's behind the funding for these businesses. I'm hoping that it is planned that will be part of the plan, right?
Okay, I'll take that as a comment rather than a question.
That was a question. Please answer. That was a question.
There's no businesses behind these plans. It's what the city staff is doing.
All right, need to move on here. I'll take Tom or.
I just had to go on to what Katie said earlier to address the intersection of Genesee and Governor with your projections. A couple years ago, Curie Elementary had to actually station a police officer in front of it during drop-off and pickup in order to ensure safety. They then also put a police officer on the other side for a while, and that's with 4 lanes. Now you're proposing 2 lanes, and you're proposing a development opposite that school of 500 to 600 units, according to your presentation that I have right here. Now, I'm not sure which scenario that's in. I understand there's other scenarios. But 500 to 600 units, and I think it's a pipe dream if people think that all those people are not going to bring a car with them.
Yes.
So, how are we going to safely? And you can say the same with the Sprout Shopping Center's proximity to Spreckles Elementary too, because you're talking 500 to 600 units there as well. How are we going to ensure the safety of the children going to and from those schools when you drop it down to that size and you add 600 dwelling units with potentially 600 plus, because some of those units might have multiple residents in them, so as many as say 1,200 cars potentially. into that small area, which is directly across the street from an elementary school that is already a troubled area for dropping children off. Thank you. That was actually a question. I am curious how you are planning to address.
Come back with it.
How you are planning to address. There was no answer. How are you planning to address that possibility?
Sure. So we can do things called safe routes to school studies that we do on many schools throughout San Diego. And so if it's presenting that there is a conflict, and through this process, that might be something that we identify that a further study that needs to happen as part of this. So we start at the big high level of, you know, what we want to do community-wide, and then you get smaller and smaller and smaller. And so as you get closer to specific intersections, before we restripe, we look at things, and if there's a need to do a safe routes to school study, that's a possibility.
There are no other streets.
I don't know what that study is, so I would just ask that when you publish that, if it's possible for you to have some kind of link to what a safe routes to school study is, so we can look at that. Thank you.
And can I request that you automatically do that at the same time you're doing the traffic study for the EIR?
Yeah, you got that.
I don't control our work program, so you can request it. And we'll,
Right, just add it to the notes. Yeah. I'm going to ask for you.
Yeah, I think this is more of a comment than a question. My name's Karen Martin. I'm a UCPG board member. And I just wanted to make sure that there's going to be some discussion in the plan of intersections. You've put up a bunch of mobility network maps that show what the roads are going to look like, but the best buffered bike lane and the most fabulous wide sidewalk in the world is useless if cyclists and pedestrians can't safely cross intersections. So I want to make sure, obviously, it's not reasonable to have a detailed intersection diagram for every intersection in the community, but I would like to see that addressed in the intersection, including statements to the effect that wherever possible, items such as leading pedestrian intervals included at all signalized intersections, bike boxes at all intersections that have bike lanes approaching them, curb extensions to shorten crossing distances for pedestrians whenever that's possible. When that's not possible, or when a curb extension still leaves a very long crossing distance, I'd like to consider center island refuges. And those are all the sorts of details that I really think should be specifically mentioned in the plan. Obviously, as I said, you can't draw out all the intersections, but if we can have those as things that should be included. I'd also note that the city's goal is to increase the percentage of people who bike to work and take transit, and increasing transit frequency. That is going to lead to increased conflict between buses and bikes. Right now, pretty much every time a bus pulls over at a bus stop, it blocks the bike lane, and that's going to become more and more of a problem if more people start biking and buses come more often. So I think that needs to be specifically addressed. Bus loading islands, I know, is an option for dealing with that, and that should be considered. And then my last comment, I was a bit surprised on the planned transit map that there was no mention of possible additional bus routes. I would think if the city really wants to increase transit ridership, that's something we should be thinking about. Particularly, several people have noted there's currently no bus route that goes east on Governor from Genesee, and that is an area that has seen and is continuing to see a lot of increased density. So I guess that would be my one question, is why are new bus routes not being considered? I can imagine there might be a jurisdictional thing, but I think it should be in the plan.
Yeah, so intersections are in the mobility study, which is a much more detailed document than the community plan draft itself. So when you see the community plan draft, we don't get down to the intersection level, but there is a mobility study. Leo had a slide earlier of kind of all the complementary pieces, and so that is part of that piece. So just so you have a reasonable expectation that it won't be in the plan when that's released, because it's done in another study. And then the other... Oh, added bus routes. So we do have a potential transit map, and this is something, transit planning is done on a region-wide level, and MTS is a partner in that, and Sandag leads that. But we do have a potential transit map, and we could look at including that there should be potential to have another bus line. That's something that we can include. What often happens is that Sandag does the regional planning. We do our planning. We coordinate very carefully with them, but then they go and do further studies, and so it's often opportunities that we can identify things in our community plans that could be studied more seriously in the next round of the regional transportation plan. So that is something we could look at, and that's the kind of input that we're looking for tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll get to you. Yeah.
Hi, my question is to Nancy. My name is Pnina Goldberg. I am 40 years resident in UC, and I'm also a registered architect for about 40 years. So the question is, I know that UCSD is going to release a huge amount of land for building housing for 15,000 students, which minimum 15,000 by the early 2030. Those people are coming and shopping at UC. They send their kids to UC. They go traffic through UC. I know that UC is not applying to the city for permits, so I was just wondering if you are realizing that in addition to the high densities that we are going to have here, you will have another at least 30,000, because every student brings a staff member, 30,000 people or more that will use our parking, our schools, our shopping. I was wondering if that was taken into consideration.
Sure. I mean, the answer is yes. UCSD makes their long-range development plan. We review that as we put our plans together. Then they update their plans, and we update ours. We coordinate with them. So, UCSD is one of the agencies that we talk to when we are putting our plans together.
I never talked to you, and I was working there for 26 years.
Okay, but we work with Robert Clausen, who's the head of facilities with UCSD. So, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I worked on the Mission Valley plan, and we coordinated with UCSD for Hillcrest and a master plan that was happening up there, and we looked at the impacts of what was going to be happening at the expansion of the hospital with the Mission Valley Community Plan update. We do coordinate.
Hi, my name is Judy Murphy, and I have been in University City for almost 52 years. Raised a couple of great kids here. My question to you is, are you aware of the fact that the residents of North UC are already, some of their children cannot go to Doyle, that they are now driving down to Spreckles for elementary school? With this increased density and no space for additional schools, what do you propose to do? Send them down to Claremont like we had to do before Stanley and UCHS? This school were built?
That's not a comment. That's a question.
Nancy, do you,
Answer the question.
Nancy, do you want to just yell out? Please.
You should. My name is Nancy Powell, and I'm gonna apologize for interrupting rudely and asking my question when I was on the line, so I'm sorry to everybody here. My question is, it goes to the basic of where this all started. The city of San Diego wanted to add 108,500 some additional housing units to help the city grow. They allocated, of that 108,000, 58,000 units to University City. Why does our little community get the bulk, almost 50% of the additional housing the city is asking? That question has been asked many times and never been answered.
All right. Nancy, would you like to answer that?
I mean, can you hear me okay? So the answer is that we look to grow the community in what's called a smart growth fashion, where we look at where transit investments are made and are being made, and we correspond with the density increase. Do you want to hear the answer?
I want to know where the hell the mayor is, and where is our council?
I'm the mayor's office, I'm president, that's our lead representative too, so to answer your question. Okay, yeah. I'm here on this behalf, thank you. Yeah, you can run Facebook too. Then you answer it!
Please, order.
Then she needs to answer that question.
What's the answer to the question?
What is the answer?
What's the mayor's position?
Okay, I'm here on the mayor's behalf. We are in a housing crisis. The state of California is in a housing crisis.
Overpopulation is not a
I want you to know I respect all of you here. So let me start with that. So I hope I can get respect back. So that I can finish my comments. Okay, so my name is Michaela. I'm the Mayor's Director of Community Engagement. I also oversee Council District 6. I'm here tonight on behalf of the mayor to answer your question when you said, where is the mayor? The mayor can't be everywhere in the city. I'm here on his behalf. I attend the community planning groups regularly, the town council or the community association as well. So
Where is he tonight?
Well, tell him we're not happy with him.
I hear you. I hear your concern. So did I answer your question?
Why do we have to support half the city?
Nancy, I have a safety question for you. I've been here, we've had 3 plane crashes in University City. One was in my neighborhood a block away. It shut everything down. We couldn't get out. There was a fire that threatened to spread through our canyons. There was no way out. How are you gonna just do one lane?
Yeah.
What happens? How are you gonna get all of us out?
Between two
We can ride our bikes out. With our pets. As long as their pets are in place.
She should have just said that. Been honest. Yeah.
I'm a resident of University City since 1998. I've been coming to these meetings ever since they were created. This whole thing about trying to change the community plan came out of an aborted effort to cancel the Regents Road Bridge. And that's been going on now. And you listen to all these questions and there's never going to be any answers. And the reason is because this is a bad idea whose time has come. It's as simple as that. You're never going to get the answers to these questions because the city won't let the marketplace manage the way we develop. The city's job is to set regulations and rules, not to do civic planning. Any city that has done civic planning in the United States and other countries, you can look at the failures because you get caught by the law of unintended consequences. You just don't have the facility to answer all the questions that are going to come up. Only the marketplace and the people living in the community can solve them as they occur over time. You should step back and stop this whole evolution and walk away from it and call it a bad idea whose time will pay.
All right, let me get to her.
I did hear the comment about putting all the housing units here because you want to maximize the trolley. When they came to University City and did all the community outreach to talk about putting the trolley, this pitch was, we know you're the second densest community in the city of San Diego. We want to bring the trolley so people don't have to live here and out all the traffic and the housing. They can take the trolley here. So it has been quite a bit of a bait and switch on, well, now we want to put housing here because the trolley's here. But my other comments or questions are, I am concerned, you talk about projected buses, but we all know that MTS actually has a shrinking budget and a national shortage of bus drivers. So it is concerning to think that we're planning density in building around bus routes that are likely not going to happen. We heard the comment about the schools. There isn't space for more schools. So one question, does the traffic study, will it consider the fact that you want to double the population of the community? Will it consider that additional traffic impact from new students coming from other locations? That's one question. And how do we tie development to the actual funding? City Council has voted that developer impact fees will not necessarily stay in the community in which they're generated. So how do we tie the projects to know that we're actually going to get the funding to do the transit and the improvements we need to offset the impacts? So those are my two questions.
So when we run the regional transportation model, the model synthesizes a population. And so Sandig does a lot of work to look at the demographics, looks at the demographics of when density is added, what are the demographics of the people who live there, and would those people have children? And so that synthesized population is taken into account. So it's not just a random person, but it's a synthesized population based upon population trends and growth, and they spend many years every year. So the regional model is updated every 4 years, and they spend a very extensive process creating the demographics that's used in that to help inform the model. So it will look at how many children will be produced by this land use plan that we would expect would live here as part of it, based upon the types of housing that would be built. So it does account for that.
The traffic study does.
Well, the traffic study is based upon the regional transportation model, and so we run the model first, and then we use those model results to do the study. So that modeling includes that information.
Will the traffic study include all of those assumptions as part of the appendices from the regional transportation plan? So we won't see the underlying data.
We can.
I mean, we can share what comes out of the regional transportation model that's used for the street analysis. That's not.
We've asked for the assumptions that go into the regional transportation plan.
So that's the documentation that's on Sandag's website. They build the model, we don't build it. So all of their documentation of what's in the model is their documentation. And we just ask them to run it on our behalf.
Okay, we've been there and it's not there, but that's okay, we'll deal with that when we get to this thing. Let's talk about how we tie the developer impact fees to the actual development.
So I might have to have Tate answer this a little bit better, but so there is a new process that's being developed as part of Build Better SD on how projects will be prioritized. So there is ability to work through the council for the prioritization of funding and how it's spent. And then there is also, through supplemental development regulations, that we can have things built as part of the project and put additional requirements beyond what's in the municipal code on individual projects to do pieces of things that need to be built.
That's not regional, I mean, that's not street widening and all the bicycle lanes and
Sure. So when a project comes forward, they have to, a developer has to improve the frontage, and so we can put requirements of what that frontage should look like. There are times when they do what's called an irrevocable offer of dedication if the segment isn't ready yet because all the other ones next to it aren't ready. So we can have an IOD that's put in place as part of it to have everything be filled in when it's available. So sometimes you can make things swing in and out, and sometimes you can't. So there's processes through development services to essentially get those rights to have those things done. And sometimes they're done immediately, and sometimes they have to be delayed based upon the configuration of each individual roadway.
so there's really no way to ensure that the impacts will be done as the projects occur.
Well, one individual project on a street, that developer may be responsible for what happens in front of their property, but it might not make sense at the time to do the total reconfiguration. But then keep in mind that the capacity in the future is designed for multiple properties to redevelop. So why we do these plans is to identify what it should be in the end condition. So as things come forward, steps are taken to make those things happen.
So it sounds like it's the last thing in the process.
All right, I'm going to continue to take comments. I know the original plan was to deal with the maps on the side, but it looks like people are a lot more interested in asking questions, and so I'm just going to continue doing that. And Tate has agreed that that's okay. We'll run this segment till 7:55, and then we'll begin to shut it down. So.
Thank you. I have a couple questions and comments. One is, I apologize if this is a dumb question because I admit I am entering this conversation just now for the first time, and I appreciate that. Who has the final say in this? Because I'm very confused. It seems to me, I feel an overwhelming majority of our community is against any increase in density. I could be wrong, it just seems that way to me coming in right now. And if that's the case, why are there even plans being made for the density increase? I don't even think we should be considering that. I think first and foremost, if we are having any say in this, then we need to just make a simple vote. Do you want to even go in the direction of making a plan or not? And then that would make things a lot simpler. Thank you. Second, the comment I have, it was interesting hearing some of the people who were on the other opinion of wanting the increase because they want to stay in this neighborhood, and I understand that, but unfortunately, increasing the density will so dramatically change the neighborhood that you will no longer be living in this neighborhood. What makes UC is not the simple geographical location, it is how it is right now. So please consider that. Thank you. My name is Emily Walker. I moved here a couple years ago. So grateful for my folks to be watching my 4-year-old son. I'm a single mother, and I'm a local mobile massage therapist as well. Thank you.
Okay. All right, just a reminder, when you get the mic and start your comment, please tell us who you are.
So we write the community discussion draft, and then we take input on that, and then that gets modified, and then a draft plan is made, and that's when the environmental analysis is done. And then there can be additional changes that happen after that goes into the final plan. That final plan is taken to Planning Commission, and then it goes to City Council, and it's City Council who chooses whether or not to adopt the plan or not.
Thank you. Hi, Tom Barman again. So I have two questions. The first of which I think is for Nancy and Leo. When you talk about the model synthesizes demographics, can you elaborate on what % of that model is weighted towards the UCSD student populations? From what I'm hearing tonight, a lot of this sounds like everything's weighted heavily towards UCSD, getting students access in and out of the campus community. I understand Aiden, the student subcommittee member, with his comments about how they don't want to deal with parking, and they support this for the biking and the bus options. But the students are not permanent residents of this area, like most of us in this room are. So I'm really curious how the weighting of the synthesized population, how is that weighted towards the student population? And then I have another question for Michaela. When you talk about there's a housing crisis, can you please define what is a housing crisis? What does that mean? Is that homeless population, or is it density across the city? Because are we really solving a problem with a housing crisis? What's your definition and how are we trying to solve it? Because I'm not clear on what that definition of what a housing crisis is. We hear that so often in the media, but nobody ever elaborates on what does that mean.
Michaela, do you want to?
She left.
Oh, she left, okay. And that's rhetorical. Okay.
My name is Carrie Schmitzer. I'm a longtime resident of UC. One comment I want to make is to the young students in the room. I have 2 kids, both of them went to college in different places. I have a daughter who's going to grad school at Stanford. She cannot afford to live in Palo Alto. She lives in Alameda and drives over an hour to go to school. Would I love for her to even have a bus? Absolutely. But there is no direct route. It's crossing bridges. It's taking time. It's what you have to do. Do I think that the citizens of Palo Alto, the community, should have to pay for my daughter to have housing? Absolutely not. UCSD, it's a privilege to go to that school. It's a fabulous school. And the students are lucky they're going there. But my community should have to supply and provide housing is really outrageous when I'm 66 years old. I'm still working, paying taxes, paying for my house, living is it's a right you earn. And this community has been built on ethics and values and And what I don't understand is when you look at the world today and everyone says, oh, look at the tragedy on the news tonight. Why didn't somebody say something? We're telling the city that what is it going to take somebody's kid or grandchildren to die in a car crash for you guys to wake up? I mean, you know.
Hi, I'm Jesse O'Sullivan, the Policy Council of Circulate San Diego. Homelessness is a housing problem. These states in the United States, I'll give you some states that have very low homelessness populations, West Virginia, Alabama. It's not because of these states' very liberal policies or their mental health services that they have low housing populations. And we do not have more mental health problems or more drug problems than those states do. What we have are very low vacancy rates and very high housing costs. And that's what causes homelessness. To the topic of the agenda today, I think there's a lot of great things on these maps. In our report, we made some maps with our own suggestions. I would encourage you to look at them. Specifically, a couple of concerns that I had on this particular map are the La Jolla Village Drive having a buffered bike lane and not a protected bike lane. That's a 50-mile-an-hour road. It's not safe to bike on a buffered bike lane on that road. And then the second issue is Genesee. I know that that's a very slow point for buses at rush hour, and so if there's, the queue jumps are great, but if you could do flex lanes or transit only lanes or something of that sort, I think that's a good spot for it. Thank you.
Oh, here's.
My name is Aiden again. I'm the student representative. I want to start by saying, ma'am, I respect you. I respect all the hard work that you've put in to live in this community, to live, and I hope you're...
Let other people speak. Let others speak. We already got a turn.
What I like to do is really try to humanize the struggle of students as well. Look, I'm not saying that other people haven't worked hard. Okay, I'm saying that students are facing challenges too. We live in this community as well. We pay taxes too. We work in this community. We do. We are a part of this community, a significant percentage, and so I'm privileged to be in this room. I'm happy to be in this room to contribute my perspective as a student. And I know that other students here today have come to speak as well. I would like to tell them, send a message to them that they should be able to speak to, they should be a part of this conversation. So I'm not saying no one else should as well, I'm just saying this is a community discussion, right? We should be a part of this too. And students, it doesn't matter. No one asks how long you're going to spend in this community before giving you a choice to speak your mind. No one asks you how long you're going to live in this community before they give you a vote at city council. Why should that be different here in this community planning group at the core? I think I said what I want to say. I do want to give another chance to other people to speak, so thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Deborah Rossi. I lived before in Governor Drive, and now I live 3 years ago. I moved here on the other side of University City. I also work at UCSD, and I know, and I've been told by everybody in the staff working at UCSD, that the chancellor wants to build apartments for every single student. So if that's the case, then there are not going to be a need of students living any other place in University City. In fact, today, I know in front of the Design and Innovation Building, they are building 2 towers, 23 floors, to accommodate a lot of the students moving from the colleges that are going 2 years in college, and then they move to UCSD for the 3rd and 4th year. So that's the plan that I've been told, being a staff member at UCSD, that's the plan of UCSD. And the second is that when it was made, the metro, or the trolley, was made, the idea that I was told also at UCSD was that it was for people, so students, that it's going to take a few years to build those two buildings of 23 floors. So they're going to they have access with the trolley to live somewhere else, and then take the trolley and be quickly. By the way, I take the trolley when I work at UCSD. And, yes, and I take a trolley because I cannot find parking at UCSD. So first point. Second point, I go for meetings. I try to work from home. When I go for meetings, if my meetings are after 9 a.m., I go to the Noble Drive station, I park my car there, and you have the 2 or 3 top floors are for you for leaving your car. Every time I go, there's no space. So we already maxed out the parking to take the trolley. Anyway, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, we're getting almost.
Yeah, just a quick comment. There's an old adage that your poor planning doesn't make for my emergency. The rapid escalation of enrollment at UCSD and the long delayed accommodation of the housing consequences of that should not place a burden on the residents of University City to accommodate the poor planning for housing of a rapidly escalating population of UCSD students. I trained at UCSD, I've taught at UCSD, I've lived in University City for 42 years. That poor planning around housing for students is not a problem of our creation, and imposing this density on us is frankly illegitimate.
Okay, at this point we have to, yes, we have to be out at 8, so I can give somebody one last little comment. So I'll give it to, yeah, we have 3 minutes to get out of here, so Katie.
Just one quick point to everyone who's worried about the students taking over the process. When I moved to University City as a 4-year-old in 1965, the university was there, students were there. Some students move out and new students move in. There will always be students at UCSD. We have to account for them in our plan, even if it's a changing group of students. The university was there. It developed at the same time as University City. Thank you.
All right, thank you everybody for attending. We do appreciate your comments, and we'll meet again next month. So thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.